She said she needed space, said she still loved me, just had to figure things out. So I waited, quietly, faithfully, until one of the guys she was figuring things out with told me everything. Now she's back, crying about second chances. But I know the truth, and it changes everything. It started like one of those conversations you don't see coming until you're already halfway through it, too stunned to stop it. We were sitting at our usual coffee spot, the kind with the mismatched chairs and playlists full of moody indie songs that made everything feel deeper than it really was. She stirred her latte like she was hypnotizing herself. Then she looked up, her voice soft, careful. I think I need some space. I need not a breakup, just time, to figure out who I am without you always around. My brain scrambled to react, but my mouth moved first. Okay, if that's what you need. She smiled, grateful, maybe relieved, and squeezed my hand like I'd passed some kind of test. I still love you, she added. I just need to breathe. And I believed her. God help me, I believed her. The first few days felt like withdrawal. I kept my phone close, waiting for any sign. A message, a meme, even a double tap on an old story. But nothing came. Just that little green dot beside her name glowing like a silent apology. I told myself this was love. That real love means giving someone what they ask for, even if it carves you out in the process. Weeks passed. I stopped texting first. Started checking her social media instead, obsessing over every photo she posted. There weren't many, just enough to keep hope alive. But one day I saw her profile was no longer private. That used to be our thing, keeping our lives for each other, not for the crowd. But now it was unlocked. There were new pictures. A guy's arm in the corner of one, a tagged post from some rooftop bar, and a comment from someone named Ethan. Can't wait for next time. I felt like I'd swallowed glass. Still, I said nothing. I told myself I didn't know the context, that maybe they were just friends, that maybe she was still figuring things out, like she said. I even drafted a message. Miss you, thinking of you. But it sat in my phone unsent for days. Eventually it got worse. A mutual friend, someone who didn't know we were on a break, pulled me aside at a party. I hadn't seen him in months. Man, tough break, he said. Didn't think she'd move on that fast. What are you talking about? I asked, heart already in my throat. He hesitated. You didn't know? Sorry. Thought you knew about her and Ethan. They've been seeing each other. Thought you two were done. I didn't respond, just nodded, smiled, changed the subject. But inside, everything cracked. That night, I went home and stared at the photo she'd taken of us last fall. The one where we were laughing so hard my eyes were barely open. I used to keep it on my nightstand. Now it looked like a scene from someone else's life. I didn't sleep, just laid there wondering how long she'd been gone before she ever said the words. Then she came back. 3 weeks later, she texted, Can we talk? I made mistakes. I want to come home. I still love you. We met at my apartment. She stood in the doorway like a stray, eyes wide and watery. I've been so lost, she whispered. But I realized, you're home. You always were. And I almost let her in. I really almost did. But then, Ethan. He showed up at my work 2 days later, said he needed to talk. Said he didn't know I still thought they were on a break. Said she told him it was over between us long before they started hooking up. That she cried to him about how I couldn't take a hint. She's a good actress, man, he said. Sorry you had to find out this way. When I got home that night, she was sitting on my couch, talking about forgiveness and fresh starts. She looked up at me, hopeful. And that's when it hit me. The messages left unread, the photos with cropped-out faces, the space, all of it. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't healing. It was permission. Hers, not mine. To do whatever she wanted while I waited in limbo like an idiot. I looked at her and saw the lies she'd wrapped in softness, in quiet apologies and careful pauses. I didn't scream, didn't ask why. I just nodded once. Cold, clear. I hope you figured out who you are, I said. Because now I know who I am without you. And I walked out. The thing about betrayal is, it doesn't explode. It drips, slow, measured, poison drop by poison drop until everything you thought was solid turns sour. Ethan's words followed me home like a shadow I couldn't shake. She told me you were done. She said you couldn't take a hint. I'd waited. Not just days or weeks, but in spirit. I paused my life for her, convinced love meant patience, that the silence between us was a sacred space she needed, not a convenient screen for someone else's hands. When I walked into my apartment, she was already there. She'd let herself in, still had the spare key. There was something obscene about it, how easily she stepped back into the world she'd ghosted, like nothing had happened, like I hadn't spent the last month staring at an empty screen, hoping to hear from her. She was curled up on my couch, wrapped in the blanket I gave her for Christmas, candle lit, my playlist playing. She looked up and smiled like we were picking up where we left off. I missed this place, she said softly. Missed you. I didn't answer, just nodded and walked past her. My hands were shaking, but I didn't want her to see. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathing in the other room. My mind kept looping. The timeline, the posts, Ethan's voice, her silence. Every thread tugged at another knot. In the morning, I found her in the kitchen. She was making coffee. For both of us. I was thinking we could talk, she said. Try again. I watched her. This person who used to be my whole world, now moving around my space like a guest pretending she'd never left. I talked to Ethan, I said quietly. She froze. Her hand hovered over the coffee pot. When she turned, her smile was gone. What did he say? Enough. A beat of silence stretched between us, taut and loaded. She stepped closer. It wasn't serious. I was confused, okay? I was hurting. I didn't know what I wanted. I nodded. But you knew what you didn't want. You didn't want me enough to wait. Her lip quivered, but I didn't feel sorry. Not anymore. Not when I realized the difference between her absence and her presence was just convenience. She didn't come back because she loved me. She came back because the distraction ran out. You said you needed space, I said. But what you really meant was you needed permission. That's not fair. No, what's not fair is that I treated your silence like a promise. You treated it like a loophole. Her eyes welled up. I didn't mean to hurt you. But that's the thing about people like her. They never mean to hurt you. They just do, and expect your empathy to clean up the mess. She reached out to touch my hand. I stepped back. I'm not angry, I told her. I'm just done. She looked stunned, like she expected anger, shouting, some kind of storm she could weather. But not this. Not the quiet resignation of someone who had nothing left to give. I walked over to the counter, picked up the coffee mug she'd been using, the chipped one with the mountain print she always said reminded her of road trips, and set it gently by the door. Don't forget this, I said. It doesn't belong here anymore. She didn't speak. She just stood there, eyes full of tears, watching me walk away. She didn't leave right away. She stood by the door with her bag half zipped, clutching that stupid mug like it meant something now, like it could anchor her to a version of us that didn't exist anymore. Her mouth opened a few times, searching for a sentence that could rewind the last month, but there was nothing left to say. Eventually, the door clicked shut behind her. No slamming, just a quiet exit, like a ghost slipping out before dawn. I waited 5 full minutes before I moved. I didn't trust myself not to chase her. Not because I wanted her back, God no, but because part of me still wanted to believe the version of her I used to love could come back with enough effort. But love built on waiting is just slow self-harm. I spent the rest of the day moving through my apartment like it was someone else's. Every object felt different now. The blanket on the couch, the hoodie she used to steal, a half-used bottle of conditioner in the shower. Little relics of a time I now realized was more illusion than memory. The worst part? I kept checking my phone. Not to message her, just to see if she'd said anything, some final explanation. An apology with more truth in it than that broken plea from yesterday. But there was nothing. Just that unread message I'd once typed and never sent. Miss you. Thinking of you. It still sat there in the thread, glowing faintly like a grave candle. That night I went through my photos. The ones of us smiling on rooftops, holding hands at pumpkin patches, kissing at midnight in parking lots. I stared at each one like it might offer me evidence of when she started to fade. But people don't disappear all at once. They evaporate. One excuse at a time. 2 days later, I ran into Ethan again. I didn't plan it. We were both at the same bar, some low-lit place with overpriced drinks and people pretending they weren't trying to be seen. He spotted me first, walked over, tentative. Look, man, I didn't mean for it to get messy. I was too tired for theatrics. I'm not mad at you. He looked surprised. You're not? You didn't owe me anything. She did. He nodded slowly. Then after a pause, he said something I hadn't expected. She told me I was the first guy she could really be herself with. Said you made her feel trapped. That being with you was like being watched all the time, like she had to earn love with good behavior. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of how familiar that lie sounded. Yeah, I said. That's her trick. She frames loyalty as surveillance and freedom as cheating. He looked uneasy. I think she does this a lot, with people. Makes them feel like they're her salvation. She's not looking to be saved, I said quietly. She's looking for someone to blame when she wrecks things. He nodded. Sorry, man. If I'd known. You know now. We clinked glasses, a strange bitter toast to shared delusion. Later that night, I finally deleted the unsent message. Not out of anger, not even out of hurt, just because I didn't want anything left unfinished between us, even silence. Grief isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just the quiet realization that you're not waiting anymore. The morning after I deleted that message, I woke up before my alarm. It was still dark out, the city humming its low mechanical sigh. I lay there in the silence, expecting the usual weight in my chest, but it wasn't there. There was something else now, lighter, but colder. Detachment. I got up, made coffee, didn't check my phone, not even once. That felt new, like my nervous system had finally stopped twitching every time her name might appear. But detachment has a strange side effect. Clarity. Suddenly, everything she'd said, everything I'd excused, clicked into place. Patterns I hadn't wanted to see. How every fight ended with me apologizing. How every moment of closeness was followed by her pulling away. How she used the word space like a shield she could hide behind whenever she got bored of being seen. I used to think we were building something. Now I saw I was patching holes in a wall she never wanted to finish. That night I sat on the balcony with a beer and opened the notes app on my phone. I didn't plan to write anything, but my hands moved on their own. It started as a letter to her, then it turned into something else. A reckoning. You don't get to call what you did a mistake. You made a decision. Repeatedly. You looked at what we had and chose distraction. You called it confusion. I call it cowardice. You didn't break me. You broke the version of me that believed you. I never sent it. I didn't need to. Some truths aren't for them. They're for you. A week passed. Then 2. Then a month. No messages. No calls. She vanished again. This time without fanfare. I saw her once, though. It was at a bookstore. One of those cozy local ones with the handwritten staff recommendations and sleepy jazz in the background. I was in the nonfiction aisle. She was in poetry. Of course she was. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did and pretended not to. Either way, we didn't speak. She looked the same. Same coat, same quiet prettiness, same way of tucking her hair behind her ear like she's thinking of something deeper than she ever says out loud. But I didn't feel what I thought I would. No ache, no urge to rewind, just distance. Not the kind you measure in feet, but the kind where you realize someone lives in a version of reality you're no longer willing to visit. I left without saying a word. Outside, the wind hit sharp. I zipped my jacket and kept walking. Some ghosts don't haunt you. They just remind you who you used to be before you finally woke up. It's funny how healing doesn't feel like victory. It feels like nothing. Not the bad kind of nothing. Not emptiness. Just stillness. The absence of noise. Of trying. A few weeks after I saw her in that bookstore, I found myself back at our old cafe. Not on purpose. I was meeting a friend who picked the place. I almost turned around when I saw the sign, but I didn't. Something in me wanted to test it. Wanted to see if the past still had claws. I ordered a drink. Sat at a different table. Watched the same barista move behind the counter like a living piece of nostalgia. And nothing cracked inside me. There was a time I'd memorized the exact table where she first held my hand. The chair she used to steal. The way she always stirred her drink even when it didn't need stirring. It used to mean everything. Now it was just a coffee shop. I was finally starting to live in the after. But you don't get through something like this without scars that itch when it rains. One of mine? The way I flinch now when someone says, I just need time. It's not their fault. But those words, they're loaded now. They feel like the start of a slow goodbye. Like the first match strike before the fire. One night I went out with friends. First time in a while. We ended up at a rooftop bar. The kind with fairy lights and overpriced cocktails. Everyone was laughing, loud and easy. Then I saw her again. Not in person. On someone's phone. A guy I barely knew showed me a photo from a party. There she is, he said, pointing. You know her? I glanced. She was sitting on someone's lap. Different guy this time. Same smile. He looked at me. You okay? I nodded. Yeah, just surprised. Yeah, she gets around. Wild energy. You too close or something? I took a slow sip of my drink. Not anymore. Later, when I got home, I opened her profile. Unlocked again. Different aesthetic now. More filters. More skin. More captions about healing and self-love and letting go of shame. I should have felt angry. Or sad. Or something. But all I felt was this dull awareness. She was exactly who she always was. I was the one who changed. I put my phone down. Looked around my apartment. The place finally felt like mine. Not because she was gone, but because I wasn't waiting for her to come back. There's a moment after every storm when the sky still looks bruised, but the worst has passed. That's where I was. Life didn't magically improve. I didn't meet someone new. I wasn't suddenly glowing with look what you lost energy. No, I was just steady. And for the first time in months, that felt like enough. But then came the text. Unknown number. Middle of the day. Hey, I heard what she did to you. Thought you deserved to know the rest. My chest tightened. I read it twice. Then again, like the words might rearrange into something safer. I replied, Who is this? Seconds later. Name's Jordan. We hooked up while you two were on a break. She told me you were controlling. I didn't know the truth until way later. I sat back, phone still in my hand. The blood in my ears got loud. Another one. Of course, I asked him to call me. I needed to hear it. His voice was calm, almost apologetic. He said they met through a mutual friend, grabbed drinks a few times, started sleeping together. She told him you and her had broken up months ago, but he didn't want to accept it. Said you were clingy, emotionally unstable, that she felt trapped. She was magnetic, he said. But I started seeing cracks. The stories didn't add up. Apparently, when he asked her why she still had a photo of us on her fridge, she said, It's complicated. When she ghosted him, he wasn't even mad, just confused. Then later he talked to a friend of hers, someone who mentioned she'd gone back to her boyfriend. That's when he put it all together. She never said a word about you being in the picture, he told me. Not once. If I'd known, I thanked him for telling me. We hung up. I just sat there after, staring at nothing. You'd think by now the truth wouldn't surprise me, that I'd built up a callus where her name used to hurt. But it wasn't pain I felt this time. It was humiliation, that I'd been the fallback, the guy she returned to when the noise got quiet. I looked around my apartment, at the bookshelf she once helped me organize, at the couch where we watched stupid movies, and I realized something sickening. Every corner of my life had been a stage for her lies. Not just to me, but about me. She hadn't just betrayed my trust. She'd rewritten the narrative, painted me as the villain in a story where I had been the one holding on too long, loving too deeply, waiting too faithfully. I picked up my phone and blocked her number. Again, for the last time. Then I opened my closet. One by one, I started packing everything she left behind. Not out of rage, out of respect. For myself. Because if the past insists on knocking, you don't owe it a seat at the table. You show it the door. Closure's a myth. You don't get a cinematic moment where everything clicks and you feel healed. You just get tired of reopening the same wound and start letting the scar do its work. A few days after Jordan's call, I donated her stuff. All of it. The sweater she always stole. The mug I once thought meant something. Even the dog-eared copy of that poetry book she swore changed her life. Gone. I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I drove to a donation center, handed over the box, and walked away like I was leaving a version of myself behind. The weirdest part? It felt boring. I thought it would feel dramatic, cathartic, but it was just quiet, like finally tossing expired food from the fridge. Something past its use. Something you knew was there but couldn't smell anymore. That night, I got drinks with Nate, my oldest friend, the one who'd watched me unravel for months but never said, "I told you so," even though I knew he wanted to. He raised his glass. "To freedom," he said with a smirk. I laughed. "Feels more like parole." He shrugged. "Still better than solitary." Then his tone shifted. "You know she told people you were controlling, right?" I looked up. "She said you made her feel small, that you didn't support her dreams, even hinted that you guilt-tripped her into staying." My throat went dry. "She said that to who? Friends? Acquaintances? Anyone who asked why she left you?" I nodded slowly, trying to keep my face still. But inside, I felt it, this cold, creeping disgust. It wasn't enough to lie to me. She had to lie about me. She couldn't just walk away. She had to rewrite the whole story with herself as the brave survivor of a man who loved her too much. Nate leaned in. "But here's the thing, the people who matter, they didn't buy it, because they know you, and because her story only works if no one asks why she kept coming back." That stuck with me. Why did she keep coming back? The answer came to me in flashes. The attention, the forgiveness, the comfort of someone who never asked her to be better, just honest. And she couldn't even do that. Later that night, I opened her old messages, not to reread them, just to see them one last time. All those half-truths, those sweet distractions. I didn't delete them. I archived them, because part of healing is keeping the record, not to reopen it, but to remember what a lie looks like in daylight. Then I texted Jordan, just one line. "Thanks again. You didn't have to say anything, but you did." He replied, "We all deserve to know when we were nothing more than a backup plan." Yeah, we do. I didn't expect to hear from her again. But manipulators don't like unfinished stories, at least not ones they can't narrate. She texted me at 2:17 a.m. on a Thursday. Middle of the night, middle of nothing. A single line. "I know I messed everything up. Please, just let me explain." I stared at the screen for a long time. Not because I was tempted, but because it was so predictable. The late-night guilt spiral. The desperate reach. The way people like her always come crawling back. Not because they care, but because they hate losing control of the version of you they built. I didn't reply. Next morning, another message. "I've been going to therapy. I'm trying to understand why I sabotage things. You were the only one who ever made me feel safe." There it was. The hook. Wrapped in self-awareness, laced with flattery. Almost believable if you hadn't lived through the wreckage. Still, I didn't respond. But she wasn't done. By the weekend, she'd sent a voice note. I didn't listen to it. I couldn't. Her voice had once been comfort. Now it felt like a trap. I just sat there, staring at the play button, thinking how strange it is to fear a sound you used to fall asleep to. She even tried one last Hail Mary, a long email. She wrote about childhood trauma, about fear of intimacy, about how she never felt worthy, and how my love was too pure and she didn't know how to accept it. She used phrases like emotional accountability and inner child healing like magic words that could unbreak what she'd shattered. But somewhere buried in paragraph 6, there it was. "I didn't think you'd find out. Not I regret what I did. Not I should have told you the truth. Just, I didn't think you'd find out." And that was everything. It was never about guilt. It was about exposure. She didn't want to apologize. She wanted to reset the board. She wanted me pliable again, open to interpretation, open to rewriting. But I wasn't her story anymore. I archived the email. No response. That was the last time she reached out. And in the silence that followed, something strange happened. I started breathing deeper, sleeping better, eating without checking my phone. I felt present in a way I hadn't in months, maybe years. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't euphoric. It was just peace, which honestly felt like rebellion. Because when someone makes you live in anxiety long enough, calm starts to feel like defiance. I went out that night, alone, not to drink or distract myself, just to exist. I walked the streets of my neighborhood, hands in my pockets, cool air against my face. And for once, I wasn't remembering or regretting. I was just here, finally. Grief had given way to something quieter now. Acceptance, maybe. Not the kind where everything makes sense, but the kind where you stop needing it to. It had been months since I last heard from her. The messages stopped. The guilt-shaded noise evaporated. And just like that, her ghost lost its grip. I started filling the spaces she left behind, not with new people, but with myself. Late-night walks, mornings at the gym, quiet Sundays with coffee and books I never had time for before. It wasn't healing in the Instagram sense. It wasn't sexy. It was maintenance. Repair. Then came the wedding invite. A mutual friend. Someone from the group we used to orbit together. I almost didn't go. I almost made an excuse. Told myself it wasn't worth it. But something in me wanted to see. Wanted to test if the past still had teeth. I showed up solo. Wore a charcoal suit. Didn't drink much. And of course, she was there. Across the room. Hair longer now. Laugh louder than I remembered. Hanging on some guy's arm like a glittering apology. For a second I thought she might ignore me. But she didn't. She caught my eye. Gave a half smile. A hesitant wave. like we were old classmates instead of people who once promised forever between shared bedsheets and whispered plans. She didn't approach me until much later after the dancing had started. She walked over slow, like testing ice. "Hey," she said, almost shy. "You look good." "Thanks," I said. "You too." An awkward pause. "I didn't expect to see you," she added. "I wasn't sure I'd come." She bit her lip. "I wanted to say I'm sorry, really sorry for everything. I didn't know how much damage I'd done until—" I held up a hand. Calm, kind. "You don't have to," I said. "I've already done the work." She blinked, caught off guard. "It's not about forgiveness," I added. "It's about closure. And I've got mine." Another pause. Her eyes dropped for a moment like she was searching for something to hold on to. "I'm glad you're okay," she finally said. I nodded. "I am." She left me standing there, and I felt nothing. No ache, no tug, no urge to chase or rewind or wonder if we could have done it differently. Just the kind of clean break you feel when the weight you've been dragging suddenly isn't yours anymore. That was the night I realized I wasn't someone recovering from betrayal. I was someone who survived it. They say healing isn't linear, and they're right. Some days I still wake up with echoes in my chest. Not pain, just the outline of where something used to be. Like a picture frame taken down, but the wall still remembering the weight. But here's the truth I never thought I'd say. I'm grateful it happened. Not because it made me stronger, not because of some cheesy lesson, but because it ended something that was slowly killing me in the quietest, most convincing way, by calling itself love. These days, I live differently. Not louder, not harder, just truer. I trust slower, I ask harder questions, and I don't romanticize confusion. I don't pretend space is love or silence is safety, or loyalty means waiting while someone decides if you're enough. I stopped needing closure from people who only offer chaos. I stopped needing to be understood by people who rewrite history to excuse their own. And I started choosing myself, not as some dramatic declaration, but in the everyday stuff. I changed my number. I moved apartments. I repainted the walls a warmer color. I bought a record player and started collecting vinyls, something I'd always wanted but never made room for. I took up running, even though I used to hate it. I sleep better now. I still see her name sometimes. Not from her directly, she's gone, but in the ripple effects. A friend who brings her up in passing, a song she used to hum, a street we once walked down on a night that felt like a movie. I let those moments pass. I don't fight them. They're just weather now. A few weeks ago, I ran into Jordan again, randomly, grocery store. He looked surprised. We talked for a bit. He asked how I was. I said, peaceful. He smiled. That's rare. I shrugged. Took a while. He nodded. Yeah, but you look like you made it. I did. I don't miss her. I miss who I thought she was. I miss who I was with her. Naive enough to think patience fixes betrayal, or that loving someone enough means they'll love you back the same way. But I've made peace with that version of me, too. He didn't know better. He tried. He loved fully. He got burned. And he learned. And now I keep the door locked. Not out of fear, but because I finally understand what belongs on this side of it. She doesn't, and that's not tragedy. That's freedom.